So I hit record, but maybe you could update me, Connor. You sort of gave context on what you and Haiz had already talked about or were thinking about doing. So, and yeah, we're
Yeah,
recording now.
yeah. So it's the idea was that last week I did a little bit of work on the Clutter app to to rebuild what they built so far in React, and Eric's really happy about that. So is Philip Beadle, who are both some of the people who've been involved in working on the current Clutter UI. The UI has been mostly an afterthought, really just trying to get the basics, like things literally kind of functional. But I was using this process of trying to just take what they'd written and rewrite it in React as a learning opportunity, and I learned quite a bit about both building UI for React and also how some of the backend stuff works. What it takes to get Holochain running on your computer, and then how to run a server process, and then how to be making some changes to the backend code and that kind of thing too. So some of that maybe we'll just. So what I wanted to do today was go through adding something, a single feature to the backend and to the front end, so that we could use that process as a co-learning opportunity to look at the technology together and to understand it more and to understand app development with Holochain and just share some ideas and knowledge. So what we're thinking specifically was to implement a new view within the UI where you can load a single meow, a meow being whatever, sort of like a tweet. So because right now you can't do that. You can just see the feed. So the goal would be to make it so that you can go to some route and you can access that single one instead of having to look just at a feed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
And I chose that because I know that it just means adding like a single new method to the backend, which feels really, I mean, we'll see how simple it is or not, but at least it's only one. We're only adding one method, and then adding a new route to the React app. So that gives us an idea of that whole thing. So I have to double check my Holochain installation. I guess I'll start sharing my screen. I think actually I've been working on it on my other computer, so we might need to do a little bit of a setup process, but actually that's fine. Instead of us all doing the setup process, just do it once on my computer together, and both of you will see what that setup process involves.
Awesome.
Does that sound good, Haiz? Anything you want to add, Haiz?
No, that sounds good. I'm trying to stay muted right now because my dog is barking.
So you're seeing this whole screen over here, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so I'll just try to be really explicit about what I know so far within this talk, both like for your sake, but also for the sake of anybody watching the recording. So Holochain is written in Go, and so you install it to your computer, and you can run it via the terminal right now. And so in the installation instructions, because I'm on Mac, I follow the Unix-based instructions.
And is the Docker based installation is still not working? Is that correct?
I'm not totally sure. I haven't tried it yet, so I've only tried the sort of native installation. So structure the Go-based install. So Rob, if you were running Ubuntu, for example, you could follow these instructions. Okay, so the first thing to install is the Go programming language, unless I already have it. Let me see. Oh, I do have it. That's good. The next thing to check would be whether I actually already have this hcadmin thing running on here.
You need a space, HC space admin.
No, it's good. It's good.
Oh, never mind.
Okay, so it's not on here. So we can just jump straight to the third step, which is cool. So this means install the Holochain Go code to my local version of Go. It seems to me that means that maybe it's already there. Let's see. Oh, it is. However, I think this version might be out of date, so I might need to figure out how to update it.
Yeah, I think you have to run make first before that.
Okay. So this. Oh, what's that? That's weird. Sometimes my keyboard screws up.
That's a yummy make.
Make. Let's see. Simultaneously, I can get the code for my Clutter React app because it's not on this computer. So I pushed this to a new GitHub repo, but I think the goal is, before long, to make this version of Clutter that I've been working on the default version that's included in the Clutter main repo.
Cool. Actually, one thing I'd note with some of the links, if any of them are important enough, just throw them in the chat here because they get a timestamp added to them that we can use for the video as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that. So after git cloning my Clutter app, I cd into it, and it's just an npm library in a way. So it's an npm package that has dependencies, so I can do the npm install, and then it's a React app that's bootstrapped with Create React app, which helps you build a React app like really simply. It gives you all the configuration. And so this uses that under the hood. Back to the Go side of things. The next step within the Go installation is we need to get hcadmin and the Holochain commands included into our bash profile, which is the thing which lets us add new commands into our terminal. Rob, you've probably done something similar with Windows by importing things into your environment path configuration. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's you point to a directory and you basically say, when I call this command, look in this particular directory and run this particular code. That's what this command means. You make sort of that link, and it exposes new features into the UI or into the CLI. So if I went back here, it's there now, Holochain 16. So I wonder what version it's supposed to be running, and just need to try and double check that somehow. I just want to make sure that we're running the latest version of Holochain, because if we're not, maybe it might not work as we're expecting it to. This looks to me like I'm not quite on the latest. So might have to uninstall it and re-download it. Have you used Go ever before? Hey.
I haven't written anything in Go, but I have gotten Holochain up and running a couple different times.
Okay.
I am trying to support you here, do a little research.
Maybe it's Go clean.
Let me see which one I have. Yeah, I've got Holochain 17 on my machine, and I haven't updated it in like a month, so you're definitely not.
Okay. I see.
Well, if you CD into the Go path, or yeah, let's see.
I think it's Go clean plus whatever this github.com metacurrency.
Cool.
And then no.
I think so. If you cd into the go path / src GitHub metacurrency holochain, I
Mm-hmm.
think you can. I think you're just in a I think you're in a Git repo there, and you're just in a master branch, and you can just pull and then run make again.
Ah, okay. Okay, yeah. You're right, it is one. And we're already learning together. Right, so based on this, once this completes, I should be able to run hcadmin and it will be in a Okay, let's not watch the loading screen. So back in the Create React app, the dependencies installed, and so
I'm gonna just start mirroring you on my machine with all this.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm now at Holochain 18, hcadmin version 003.
Okay, cool. I think that's where I will be once this finishes too, which is great. Okay, nice. And then checking this. Yeah, that's sweet. So in order to run a Holochain app, you need the two, well, you don't need, but if the Holochain app has a UI, then you need to be running the server process for the Holochain app, and it will serve up files which are just like in the main folder of that app. Like I'll show you, you can access the maybe you've already done this before, Haiz. You've run Clutter locally on your machine or no?
I actually tried and failed to get to run like a month ago, and that was the last I tried.
Okay.
I ran into some weird. Well, actually, what happened was that it was not serving assets to my local host. I don't know why, and Eric did, and I just I never came back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll try. We'll see what happens now.
Right. Oops. No. Okay, so then I think right within the main Holochain app, there's Clutter. No? Within examples? No. Maybe we need to download it or clone it or something. There's okay.
Have you initted your if you run hcadmin and init?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think I have that because when I ran it, I see that. So I think that means that I've initialized it. Holochain/Clutter. So they have this hcdev init though, and I think that's what I need. So this is in the Holochain Clutter repo. You say you need to, you can install Clutter very simply with this if you have the CLI tools installed. So let's just try.
So
not, yeah, this hcdev init dash clone example. Okay, so that clones the repo into the Clutter repo into the Holochain folder. So then I cd into Clutter, and then just right away I can run the web server development process. Oops. So then just like that, it's being served on port 4141. And that is both the UI and the web backend.
okay, let's see.
Rob, you
Yep.
haven't tried doing anything like this because it's not set up for Windows yet, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's what I've been told, but yeah.
So I'm right with you.
You are?
Yeah, I'm up and running.
Okay, awesome.
But I did not. So I don't have to be running like an npm dev server or something.
Not for this. So
what are we looking at right now? This is not the React.
No, this is
okay. All right.
This is not the React version.
This
no,
is just Bootstrap and jQuery.
This is the one that they've been building and that they've supplied.
Gotcha. So
this thing's been.
Should we be able to, like, should I be able to see? I mean,
no. So it's running in a test net.
Okay.
So this isn't sort of like a live chain where you'll see other users. That kind of threw me, and even what I write locally, like Connor and Meow, this data which has been written to my local chain will be discarded if I stop the hcdev process.
Right.
And I'll need to do it again if I restart it.
Okay. All right.
So,
okay, cool. So now we can, so now we run the dev server for your React app?
Yeah, that's npm start over in the this other UI or this other folder. Building it up. So this is the React version.
Cool.
It's running at localhost 3000, a different port than this one. So you can see little changes, just different colored buttons, slightly tiny tweaks. It's almost entirely the exact same. The main difference being that over here, these occur in modals, and over here, these occur in routes /settings and /follow. and they change the inner content. And I go back to it by clicking on my username. This should probably be a link too. But right now, I have this meow in here, and I can't click on it to just load it up in a sort of single view. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
You just ran npm start to get your dev server?
After running npm install, yep.
Yeah, well, let's see. Let me try. I typically use yarn for.
So you should be able to use yarn and run yarn.
Yeah.
Start yarn run start or something.
Okay. And so I keep getting error missing script start.
Mm.
Let's see. It's giving me a log.
Let me double check that. I think you need to be using run. Are you using yarn run start?
I'm using npm. I'm just not even using. Oh, you know what? Okay, never. This explains things. Okay, so the issue is that I am in the wrong Clutter repo. I am in Holochain Clutter, not Conoropoulos Clutter.
Okay, all right, I see. Cool.
Let's see.
So to give you a quick primer on how this app, the UI running at localhost 3000, is connecting to the backend and fetching data such as meow. The server process, the one that we see running right here, the HC dev server process that we started, HC dev web, is running on port 4041, and it makes accessible some routes which are sort of hidden, which look something like this, except that you cannot make a GET request to this endpoint. You can only make POST requests. So I'll change this so that this is more clear. So the way that your UI communicates to the backend, to the server process, is you call this endpoint /fn/ this stands for the app name, or in the Holochain lingo, it's like the zone. And then this third one is the method name. So to show you in the code where these show up, it's time to open that up. Here's the UI. For the backend. Where is that?
All right, great. I now have your React UI up and running.
Sweet. I need to get into my system folders. What's the path of all this? Okay, go source. Okay. There we go. So nice. So in this main Clutter repo, it's not the React one, there's a folder for the UI, which is where all the code for the current UI lives, which I based my React app off of. So it has all the methods and it does everything with jQuery. And then it has its HTML file and its CSS. So I copied the HTML and CSS and then broke it, and JavaScript, and kind of broke it all down into and rewrote a bunch of it in the React app. But over here, we have in the DNA folder, we have the backend code for Clutter. So I said in the URL we access like /fn/clutter, and that's because in this dna.json there's the zones configuration, and it specifies that the name of this thing is clutter.
So that's creating a namespace essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And so that you could have multiple of these running, and they wouldn't conflict. Yeah. And then it also points to a file clutter.js, which is within the clutter folder. This is even though it's written in JavaScript, it is the backend. Don't know if backend is the right term for this anymore, but
I asked Eric. I think I heard Eric calling it a backend the other day. I mean, it's
a server process thing. So
yeah, it's certainly analogous.
Exactly. So what I know so far about this dna.json file is that it does create a schema which the clutter.js file kind of has to adhere to in a way. And this entries are the type of data which can be stored. So there's handles, posts, things called posts links, handle links, directory links, follows, and unfollows, and anchors. Then there's functions, get property, app property, follow, add post, unfollow. So we can see these are all the functions which are needed by the front end. And for a given one of these, anything that shows up in here, whatever its name is here, this corresponds to whatever I put here. So whatever I put here when I'm making a request to the server, first thing it's going to kind of do is check, like, is it defined within the DNA file, I think. I'm making some of this up as I go, but I'm like pretty confident that there's no reason why it wouldn't work like that. Then that needs to be actually backed up by the existence of a follow method within the clutter file, which defines the code that should actually be executed when you make that request, and also whatever this return value is, it will return this over HTTP to the request. So
do you know where the documentation for all this is? Like, I'm seeing, in this clutter.js commit, right? Like
Yeah.
that's obviously
Yes.
part of a library or something, right? So
It is, and there is documentation for it. It's not bad. It's at developer.holochain.net, and it's in the it's in the API reference section here. So everything which is defined here in this API reference is available as functions within the JS file. So commit is right here, and it expands on what that is and does. And we'll try and we'll have to use that to finish what we're going to try and finish. So so we'll learn a little bit more about it. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the React app for a minute and give you guys a quick look at what's going on over here. So doesn't matter too much whether you're familiar with React or not. There's tons of like good documentation and tutorials. So if you want to figure out like how to contribute to this code base better, it's just really about following a good React tutorial, and all the same principles which they talk about and what you might learn in a tutorial are here. So meanwhile, you can probably contribute something anyways, because I defined pretty explicitly in the README how to go about adding new features. So even we can just basically follow my own instructions, which I wrote up. So as an example, there's we can't really see any in here because I'm not following anybody, but if I was following somebody or multiple people, they would appear in a list right here under following. And in order to know who I'm following, obviously that data has to come from the backend. So that's what is being defined here. There's a method which is a Holochain request. I say go to the namespace clutter, which we talked about, and I need to pass it a few things. Pass it a little bit of data, and somewhere else in the code, I'm going to define what to do with that data when I get it back. But it's enough to know for this specific sort of concern that that what we're trying to do right now is to get the follows. Except that in our case, what we're going to try and do is get a single meow, right? So we know that we want to add sort of a new action into the front end. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. Although I'm thinking now that we'll start on the back end in terms of adding the method.
I'm looking at your middleware, which I like this. But I noticed that it's always a post. Is that right? Always.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I'm not totally sure why it's defined that way. It doesn't necessarily follow some of the best practices of making an endpoint. However,
so wait, are all Holochain requests or posts?
like at this point, yes, I am curious whether they might change that in the future. But right now, yeah, every single post is just every single request is a post request, and it goes like I was talking about to /function, and then the namespace, which we use Clutter, and then the function name.
Well, I guess like I think it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think it needs some work, but it's not exactly problematic at the time being. So, oh, you know, one of the reasons why it is, which is interesting, is that normally you would be able to define like something like in a URL if you want to request a specific thing, you would specify like an ID in the URL itself.
Right.
You can't.
And we don't have a route. We don't have like a router either, right? So we can't make like post cat and get cat be two different functions.
Yeah, exactly. Because so it just all it knows is the method name,
right.
And
that makes
it can't. Like in the future, maybe how you could fix all this up would be to make it so that you could have some kind of router, and be able to specify parameters and have names for those parameters, and then have those parameters accessible within the function in the backend. For now, they just use sort of what's probably the simplest possible way to accomplish that, which was to send post requests for every single one and make any data passed in a post request match the input parameters for that,
right.
for that method. So, yeah, it's that's why it took me a little bit of time to wrap my head around it, because it's like, what's going on here? Like, it's very different from other patterns of web development.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a section of this video that I'm hoping will be really like helpful to other people who are maybe trying to get started too, like, because otherwise they're going to be banging their head against the wall. So if we to go about considering how to, probably helpful for us to look at how a post gets created, right?
Yeah.
So that's this method, function post. It accepts a little bit of data. It should be an object, I believe. Yes, it is an object, and it's an object which has two parameters on it. So these parameters would be post. What do I define here? It's this object. It's a message, which is meow in the case of the one that I just made, and stamp, which is like a timestamp. So it passes it a value at the moment that is equal to the moment that it gets created. That's pretty standard. So this data that's going to get sent to the backend, the message and the stamp, they come in right here as post, and there's a function called commit post, which, as it describes, commits the post block to my source chain and assigns the resulting hash to key. So key is now equal to the hash at which this new post was just stored. So every entry gets a hash, which is basically like its ID. It's its unique identifier.
Do you know if there's is there any sort of equivalent of like a database console? Can we interact directly with our source chain?
I'm not sure. It's a good question. I don't know. Maybe Rob, you could make a note of that. But what's useful to us here to know is that if we're going to want to get a post that was created, then we're going to want to retrieve it based on whatever key is equal to right now. Later, the hash of the post. So basically, now there's some other stuff here which we could talk about, but in the end, when you create a post, it returns the key to that post. I'm not sure. I personally think that in terms of API design, it should probably return the whole post, including its key, not just the key. But that's another story and could be a different piece of work. But to go about getting a single post, let's assume that we need to create a method that just doesn't exist in here yet, called getPost, and it consumes a hash or a key. And the pseudocode would be get the post and then return it. So it's not a whole lot of steps in here. Now, I haven't used this method before, but in the API reference, we'll see how this works. We have these DHT query functions, and this one called get. This function retrieves an entry from the local chain or the DHT. So this is what we're going to need to use, and perfectly it consumes. It consumes a hash. And it accepts some values here, or some options, and it gives us an example. So this is super easy. Let me see. Let me see at this point actually whether one of you can take over.
Okay.
Control here. How do I? Yeah, remote control. Oh, I can just give control to one of you.
It'd be neat if you gave it to Haiz if he wants to take it over. I think it's useful. I've been sort of taking notes in the chat, so maybe instead of us using the chat, that we take notes there, and then it'll be easy to put them in line later.
Plus, I was about to say, I mean, I love control, so. What a second.
When we were in the Clutter app, I thought it said, "Can Haiz herd cats?"
Okay, I'm back.
You should be receiving like an invite or something, Haiz.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are controlling Connor's screen. Do you see? Oh, yeah. Looks like I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool.
So right there, we need to assign a value equal to the get request, right?
Yeah.
Which we can just do with basic, yeah. But we need to declare the variable.
All right. I'm not a JavaScript person. We can't use ES6, right? So it has to be a var.
Yeah. And then we need to change the get from the example code to match our code. So the hash variable needs to change.
All right.
So this should be enough.
Yeah.
So you can use Command S or whatever to save this file. And then,
Did that work?
yeah. Before it'll work, we still need to modify, I think, the dna.json file.
We need to declare that function available.
Yeah. So there's no new entry type. It's a new function type. So further down.
Okay.
Here, yeah.
Right.
It's get post capital P, yeah.
And what is this calling type?
That's good question. Now, JSON.
It's just going to be a string because we're not passing any sort of key value, right? So.
Right, it's just a single, yeah. So I think it's I think it's string. It's going to be just the hash, and we can just assume that it's just that. So it doesn't need to be an object.
This exposure public, does that mean that we also have to declare our private functions in the same way? What do you?
I don't think so. I think in order to, although I don't know what the other values are that we might want to use for exposure, but I do know that probably defining it as public is going to be necessary to make it available over the API.
Right. Okay, well, but I think, do we now have to rebuild Clutter?
I don't think so, but we need to restart the server, I think.
Okay.
So so this is saved, yeah. So going to the terminal and going over to the HC dev process, yeah, just kill it and arrow up and restart it, yeah.
Okay.
So I think
you're lagging out.
Okay, so it cleared of data.
Okay.
Again, go back to the now we don't have a great way of calling this this method exactly, except by actually putting something into the UI. It's a little bit hard to test because of cross origin, access allowed cross origin. The only way that we could call it is if we wrote a curl request from the terminal. But we should put in a meow. Cool.
So
and
that's
also
our hash, right? Our hash key.
No, that's my user hash. Actually, it's not using a handle because I don't have the handle set. Go to settings.
I don't know if that worked or not. I hit enter. This time I'll click the button.
Try it without the, okay.
Okay, so.
There. And then, yes.
Cool.
So you know what live updates, that's the
yeah. So if we inspect this, like if we look at your, do you have Redux tools in here?
I don't have Redux tools installed, but I do have React tools. So let me grab it. Bring it over here.
I'm wondering, are we going to see this hash key somewhere? Looks like you got Redux.
Yeah, although I think you need to configure it in a way that I didn't.
Okay. So there's the me hash, okay, and there's The meow key?
But the key is the stamp. Now, we should be able to, let's say that we even just refreshed the page, we should be able to look in the network requests.
Okay. What's the, I don't know the command for.
It's Command R.
Okay.
And then can switch tabs here.
I'm just curious, are you both able to control now or only Haiz?
It looks like
it seems we both can. So in the get posts by, just look at a get posts by request. You can see us making one request a second to get the updated info. And then just click the response tab over here.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so that's the hash of a post.
Cool.
So what we want to be able to do.
So do we not have the ability to just run our functions via some sort of interactive console? Is that?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
It might exist, and I don't know about it. But I'm just sort of going off the basis that we'll just implement the front end request fairly. It's not sort of a huge thing. So,
okay, cool.
And at that point, we'll run into the whatever. Yeah, we'll get the data and see how it's working. So what we want to be able to do.
I'll let you drive now.
No, you keep doing it, Haiz.
So we want to go into React and run a new action?
Yeah. And even before that,
why don't I add this folder? Do you want me to add the folder to the same?
No, it's okay. I'll switch over to it here. There we go. Okay, so the place where some of the routes are defined, which we're wanting to add a new route to access, like a single one, is within app.js. So then going down, we've got the routes within the content.
Gotcha.
And then just follow this pattern and add a post one. We need to make up a path for it.
Yeah.
And we'll need to create a component for it.
Do we want to just call it just
maybe
like
/m/meow hash?
How about just /meow?
Yeah, /meow, and then colon meow hash.
Okay.
So the second thing, by adding the colon, makes it a dynamic parameter.
Right. And this is React router, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're gonna need.
We're gonna need to change the component value, and we'll have to create and define that. So keep the container part, but just make it meow container. Yeah.
And so my guess is that you're following the pattern where basically the containers are where we connect to Redux, and then the components are just present whatever data they're given, whatever props are passed to them. Okay.
Yeah. So the great thing is that we already have a component for meow, so we're just going to be able to render that single component. So within so save this file. Actually, before we save it, go up to the top because we need an import. Meow container doesn't exist within this file. So we're importing it before it exists, but that's fine. Import meow container from /meow container. So you've got, that's in both.
Spelled that wrong twice. Did I spell it wrong somewhere else? I swear it was prompting.
That's right.
Okay, cool. All right.
Maybe Haiz
then
can't
save
hear
it.
cats.
Okay, cool. Now we need to create meow container.js. So just go over to source and right click.
Clone one of these.
Yeah, you could copy one of the other containers. Actually, would be great.
Yeah. Any particular one? New meow, perhaps, or follow?
Doesn't matter. Follow container. Sure.
Okay.
Sweet. So now we have one of these ridiculous container.
So we've, okay. Which is basically just a couple functions.
Yep. And let me sort of explain what some of this does. So, well, even just by, so first of all, this thing takes a particular component that we have, like you said, that's just for a presentation of data, such as meow.
In this case, follow.
And yeah, and in this case, follow, and wraps it and passes it data. It passes it data as props. That's the goal of this whole thing. And it passes data, and it also passes actions. And actions are just functions, which it can call. And so the data that it passes is just within map state to props, and the functions which it passes are in map dispatch to props. And so, but the first thing that we could modify is the particular component which this wraps. So that's the import follow from follow, and it's also the very last line, line 40, where we say wrap this particular component. So we could just change this to meow, because I think that's all that we're going to wrap here. Yeah, nice. Then whatever particular actions as defined in our actions file, which we haven't made any changes to yet, but these map one-to-one to our backend functions. Okay, follow, unfollow, get agent. These is defined in the backend and the front end.
Right. So we're definitely
with the same name. So we just need this new method, which we've defined in the backend, not yet in the front end, but it's called
get meow, is that right?
Get post.
Get post.
We need to decide on terminology, but that's okay.
Is that, yeah, what do we, Well, should we call this stuff meow or posts instead of meows? It doesn't.
Yeah, although it's just naming, so we'll just leave it we'll just leave it for now. But yeah, okay. It would be ideal if it kind of.
And so this mapping one-to-one, that's the convention you've been sticking with.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could
like that. That helps keep things clear.
Mm-hmm. You could have other actions on the front end which didn't even make round trips to the back end, in which case they don't need to match the naming.
Do you agree with my formatting chain there?
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah, so now we have get post in here, and this whole, I'm pretty sure that's the only method that this thing needs. So to start out with, we could just change the, let's start with the map dispatch to props, which is where we're going to define this get post method. And you can take out the whole unfollow one. Yeah. and the comma, and change the key follow to get post. No, the key just behind.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And then get post consumes a post hash, right? So we change handle to post hash.
I'll just do that.
So the funny thing about what this does is that basically we have this special thing called dispatch, which is a method which has to send an action, but we don't want our component to have to deal with that wrapper method dispatch. We want it to be able to
dispatch is a method provided by Redux, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one of the things I have yet to fully understand in Redux is exactly what dispatch is.
Mm-hmm. It executes the action that you provide it globally. So it needs dispatch in order to modify the state in Redux in the proper way. And so it's,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Well, an action being an object that has data and a type, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So this whole get agent thing, which we're changing, and I'm just going to do this. Get post. Yeah. So get post with post hash just returns an object, as we kind of see in such as all these other examples. They just return objects. So these are called action creators because they take a little bit of data and they return an object which has a type and some meta.
Right.
Metadata. Yeah. And so dispatch is the thing which actually says, hey, Redux, this action is happening. Do what you need to. Change the state based on my action.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. And so
thank you for the Redux tutorial as we do this.
That's great. So many layers. So now we've defined a prop for our meow, which just takes a post hash and it sends off the actual action. So that's really good, but I'm thinking about this a little bit more here. Let's see. Meow. Maybe we need so when the page is going to load, the order of operations is going to be user navigates to /meow/ID. Then it's going to pick up our route in app.js and say, I need to load the meow container for this particular route. Then the meow container is going to do its thing, and it's going to say, I need to load the meow component for this. Then it's going to go into here. However, at no point up to this point have we actually retrieved the data for this particular meow
Right.
from the server. So we need to handle two cases. We need to handle the case where the meow has loaded, in which case we just display it. And we need to handle the case where it hasn't yet loaded, in which case we need to fetch that data from the backend. So I'm thinking we can just modify, to handle this situation. But first, we need to change this up here, Haiz.
Okay.
So there's this thing in Redux called the store, and the store stores everything, all the data that we already have about state and any data that we've already fetched from the backend so that it's kind of cached locally, right?
Right, and so we need to get the actual correct key out of that.
Yeah, so we need to do two things. We need to get the key that was passed in from the route, and we need to see whether in our store we have the post with that key, in which case it's great because we just display it, right? And if we don't have it, the inner meow container, it's going to be smart about it, and it's going to call this get post, which then is going to trigger sort of a re-render once it has the data, and it's going to display itself.
Right.
So within our props object, within map state to props, we need to change it. We can just define a key which is to signify the post. Right? So change following to post. No, not that one.
Oh.
This
one.
Key, yep.
Yeah, and then so are we going to have like an array of posts or something?
Yeah, so we already have in our state object an array of posts. It's let me see. Let me double check. So we base this off of this initial state. There's a post, and actually it's not an array, it's an object.
Right.
Stamp as their key, so that's interesting. So so we'll need to actually go through this object and find the post with the right.
I guess does it make stamp the key just for sorting purposes, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's why they did it. I just followed their pattern, but might be better if the hash was the key, but that's okay. So without going too much into object.keys and stuff, let's say that we change object.keys to state.posts.
I'm no longer in control.
Oh, it says it's waiting for you to be. Can you not regain it? Let me try giving it. I sort of reassigned it.
Okay. Yeah, it's.
You still doing all right, Rob?
Oh, there it goes. It's back.
Robert, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, but did you just say, am I doing all right, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of this is some of it's over my head, but I'd rather this be a more higher level technical thing because we were recently just lurking at sort of finding materials to share exactly like this. So I don't want to slow things down.
No, it's okay. It's important to I mean, I think we're just kind of right in the weeds here, and in a minute it's going to kind of elevate back up to a higher level where it'll be more clear.
And just a time check, I've got probably 20 minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll get through this. Okay. So what this gives us is an array with the timestamps as their values.
Right.
Okay. So in the map function, it's no longer a user hash that we have. It's a post stamp. So call it that.
Yeah.
Then let's see. You know what? This one's a bit funny. I'm just gonna kill this and write this from scratch because this is we're not starting with a good reference point.
Right. So we're going to need to map over our object, and we're going to need to return a new object where the keys are the hashes. Do you think that's right? Is that how you want to do this?
We don't necessarily need to do that. What we can do is we want to do a find, because what we want is like a single object out of all of these objects. So
right. We'll just map over them and find the one where that matches the hash.
So if we had our object our keys for the posts, then maybe if we do a step before this, so up here. So let's make it into an array, just because it's going to be easier to think about. Return so this would give us an array with all of the posts. Just a little bit better. And within the array, we can use find, which is a method for arrays which iterates over the whole thing, and if it's right, so we need the ID because we need to look for the post with the ID specified in the URL. So this is where a little piece of magic from React Router comes in, and there's an example for this, I think, in the users. We have this thing, match.params, which has user hash on it, which I'll show you what that relates to. It relates to this : user hash.
Right.
In the routes. So in our case, we have : meow hash. So we pretty much just grab this, and I'm going to make a little change here. And this is meow hash. Or we could call this and now this would return the right post from the array of posts where the hash is equal to the one specified in the URL. It could be null or undefined, but that's fine. And the last thing I need to make sure is that it is actually that the value is actually at just dot hash. So I think within the reducer, just need to check this. hash. This is just signifying to me the shape of the posts, and it has author on it, which is the hash of the author, and also the hash of the particular post. So it does have a property called hash, and that's what we need to check against. So this is right. This will be working.
Great.
Save it up. Move past this this stage. It's crazy. So within meow, we're going to define a first case here to sort of cut off the second case where the post is loaded. Mm-hmm. We're just going to null if there's no post, and only do the rest of this and render the post if we have it.
Right. Would this be a case where we might use? Yeah, I was about to say component did mount. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How did you know about that?
I mean, I've done a little bit of React, and I've I read a lot of React. I just don't write very much of it.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. You're reading it. That's right. So, within here, we can just say, so what this is, component did mount for Rob and anyone else watching, is this means if you try to render this component, so if this component gets rendered into the page, right at the moment that it first gets rendered, this method will get called component did mount. This is one you can look it up by looking up the lifecycle methods of React. And so we're saying when the component mounts, I want to check whether I have a post for this particular thing, and if I don't, I want to go get it. And what this makes me realize is that instead of consuming something in get post, we should actually just define this a little bit more out here. And we have access, Haiz, to the same thing, the parameter from the URL.
Right.
And we can just say, go and get that post for the address that we're at.
Right.
And then we can see, like, this guy doesn't even have to pass anything. He just calls dumbly the method. With that, it's almost working. Okay, you take control again, Haiz. This is kind of the last thing, should be. Okay. We have to implement the action.
Right.
So if you go to the actions index, we need to add get post.
Try that again. And we're accepting a post hash, right? No.
Mm-hmm. And give it then as well, the same as the other ones.
Okay.
Then as the second thing, and that's just a convention that I've defined for this.
Okay.
Then return an object, type, and this is a constant which we define at the top of the file. So get underscore post, all in caps, and we'll have to define that, but that's what we want the value to be. Then meta, and it's a nested object, and isHc true.
What is that? Is this for your middleware?
Yes, this defines how the middleware should behave. It says this action is actually a backend action.
Gotcha. Hold on a second.
Namespace clutter, yeah. Data is just straight up the post hash. This correlates to the calling type string that we defined.
Gotcha.
So for post, it was JSON, so it was an object, and for get post, it was a string, so we can just pass it straight, and just say then here. So then can be a promise, and it defines something which you can do once the round trip to the backend has completed.
Gotcha. So this is a way to pass a promise in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then define get post up at the top of the file. And make it follow a camel case thing here. Yeah. It's this value which truly has to equate to the method name in the backend, because it gets
because of the middleware.
It gets inserted straight into the middleware. Yeah,
right over here we got our namespace, our function, our data.
Yeah, all that stuff comes together and gets thrown in there.
So where does then come into play here?
It comes there's one place that it comes in down here. We pass the promise along. Mm-hmm. There's only one place where I'm currently using that, I think. But it's very helpful to have in there, because whenever you have asynchronous actions, you want to be able to do something after that action completes.
Right. And so you're not using any sort of Redux middleware here, like Thunk or something?
Yes, actually there is something. There's a third one called Redux Promises, which actually does kind of complete the cycle, and that here they are right here.
Okay.
The Holochain middleware, there's this request sending thing, and then there's the promise middleware, which is an imported library.
Okay.
Redux
promise, and that's basically an alternative to a Thunk or something.
Yeah, I think so. I've never used Thunk, but yeah, it's an alternative. Yeah. Nice. Actually, I lied, and there's one more step, which is in the reducers.
Okay, right. And the reducer is where we're building up our new state.
Yeah. And this is a lot of crazy, silly syntax. I'd like to change that. It's something I learned somewhere else, but go up to the very top. Oh no, okay, we don't need to do anything up there. But basically, this the reducer, you know, it handles an action, and it defines how the state should be modified, and so
are we going to have like an active post or something?
We don't actually need that. We can just take the API response and insert the post into the posts object, just like any other one.
Oh, right.
And it will smartly extract that post from there. So the role of the reducer is to return a copy of the state. It should be
Right.
done in a mutable way, which means that it should return an object which is considered a different and new object from the one before. So it shouldn't
Right.
just modify the other one. It should actually copy it and then, but copy it in the modified
Yeah,
way.
like I would expect to be seeing like object assign or something like that.
This syntax of the of these does exactly what object.assign does.
And so we're using a spread operator. We're spreading in our existing state, and then
we're changing posts.
The state up posts.
So we're saying keep posts basically the exact same as it is, except that the one at this new key, I need to look at what the data structure is here. This is where we can do something.
Is it so? This is just like syntactical sugar for object assigns.
Yeah, I think it is actually. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to mock this, and at this point, this is like one of those moments where it's like, okay, let's just see if we can.
Right. Let's just get something in there because I got 5 minutes. So.
Yeah. Export. Get post. Oh, this didn't get saved. Might be it. Yeah. Okay, so whatever the hash of this thing was, I'll redefine /meow. Some kind of error. Can't read.
Is this error screen? Is this like a create React Native?
Create React app error, yeah.
Or React app, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe just at some point doesn't exist. Where was that in here?
Well, this is still, this is still a great start. Even if I have to go before we get this running.
You can actually just cut off this issue too. There's something funny going on. Oh, that's
right.
It. Okay, there we go.
Cool.
What about the payload?
Well, I got to run, Connor.
Okay.
But I'm taking all of next week off from work. I will be happy to do some pairing if you would like.
Yeah, cool.
And I could even do some tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I'll get this I'll get this pushed, but also Rob and I can like just complete it. We'll complete the video um and then yeah, we can continue to just kind of keep working together on different things.
Great. That sounds awesome.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Haiz.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you so much for just initiating this and getting us moving.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Good to talk to you both.
Yeah, same. Have a nice night.
Yeah, thank you. I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Just you and me, Rob. Okay, you take over, Rob.
Okay.
um,
Maybe I'll be like a cat and you'll have to herd me too as I'm mashing the keyboard.
So what I'm currently doing and thinking is trying to get the data from the get post action which we sent, which should have data from our backend, like this post.
Mm-hmm.
It does. No, we send it the string. But what I'm expecting to see is that it should have a payload value, which is the value of the post itself, but it's undefined.
Huh.
So what that suggests to me, well, actually, let's see whether it's performing the network request. Like it should be. No, it's not. So there's something up with the way that we defined it. Oh, it's this. I saw this when he did this and I didn't correct it. It's this isHc was defined differently. With a capital C. It's as small as that. There we go. There it is.
Awesome.
But it doesn't have the oh well, we know what the ID is because it's in the URL. But we would want the author of it, and we'd also want the hash in there. So that comes down to what our backend code actually looked like. It just gets the entry straight, like it is. I'm going to copy something from down in the get posts by, and we're just going to rip that and use it up here. Oh no, those are all the posts for an author. No, that's not what we want. maybe there's a way to retrieve the author for an entry as well as just the entry itself. You know, for the sake of this, just not add an error. And we're just going to add that thing in. So we have it now. Add that post in. So we add it at payload.stamp. And the post is an object which has all the same properties as payload, plus its hash is equal to the value that we fetched. So let's see what we have going on. Here we have get post defined, but no post. And that is probably because we did this. You have to like undebug your debugging.
Keep notes on.
Yeah.
Keep notes on your notes.
There it is.
Sweet.
There it is, Robert. There it is.
So now when there's very important conversations happening on Clutter, we can just link people directly to things.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And it should be, you know, so here it is. And the next steps would be to make it so that it includes the author and their handle, and also that this is like linkable or something. You can like click on the timestamp to go to that specific one or something, right?
Mm.
Oh, let's just add that. Let's add that to a meow. Let's add, so we have this link to the author, and now we'll have a link to the specific one too.
Can we do that just as a
permalink?
Don't they normally do that with the timestamp, or is that not accessible here?
Yeah, the timestamp is accessible. Yeah, actually, yeah, we could just linkify that. Yeah. Link. Give it a 2 value. And the 2 is the hash. check it out.
Sweet.
Uh-huh. Should,
Oh, I'd put that on the...
I don't know, it could be like that. Yeah. Now I'm just going to hack it. Cool. So this is now a permalink.
Awesome. Well,
Quite a process, huh?
yeah. Well, actually, it's a thing that I was thinking would be neat to do more of, and maybe not just on Clutter, like I was saying, maybe also meta maps, maybe also just paired programming on all of our kind of overlapping coding projects. And that, maybe it's not even coding always each time either, but on some level, it's about learning each other's languages, kind of, and how to speak to each other.
Yeah.